And Michelle, we sent you resent you the scripts if you're able to get them.
Okay.
If not, I'm happy to read them.
Well, you just read that one for now so we can move on, and I have the rest.
Will do. The Board of Cosmetology will now exit executive session and reconvene open session at 10:59 a.m. No final decisions were made and no votes were taken in executive session. The public phone line has been unmuted and representatives of the media may once again report all board discussions and actions.
Excellent, thank you. All right, Sammy, are you going to help us out here?
I am. So this is Sammy for the record. And so basically we are working on rules for House Bill 2970, which is to collaboratively define what devices are for advanced aesthetics and aesthetics. So in terms of corralling, so 2933, what it did is said all of these communities, all of these things for any rule. So for this purpose, I want to focus on just devices for aesthetics and advanced aesthetics. Does that make sense? So we don't need to, for example, we don't need to have necessarily a barber and a nail technician because the rules are really only focusing on the aesthetic and advanced aesthetic devices. So if we can think in that kind of narrow field, it's perfect. And then what I've done for some other groups like midwives, things like that, is they were able to determine specific groups that deal with pregnant women. I don't know if you guys are going to have those types of groups, but just to kind of start from the top, people of color, are they going to be affected? I mean, devices is a very broad spectrum of information. So the possibility of people who will be affected, small businesses, potentially rural communities, maybe the transgender community, for like hair removal, things like that. What medical community people will be affected, medical spas, dermatologists, nurse practitioners. There's all sorts of things, but just us trying to hone in on who we want to hear from and who you think is going to be affected. So we can just start from the top. Will Black communities be affected, the people of color? And if we can just kind of determine that, and then if you have some groups that I can reach out to, I can make notes here. Or if you come up with some after the fact, you can email me who to contact. Does that make sense? No.
Yes, it makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it makes sense. But here's,
Okay.
This is Harold, by the way. The actual issue is, yes, I can identify a few people, but how are they going to disseminate it to the community? I think that's probably one of the biggest issues as well. But anyway, just a thought. Thank you.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, what we know today is it's hard to get Rules Advisory Committee members in general. I can tell you this from many years of experience. So now trying to get specific communities or specific people that fit in these categories could possibly be much more difficult. So it's going to be important that if you determine Indigenous people, who am I going to reach out to? And then I will put out communication pieces with the cover letter that says, this is what we're looking for. And to something Ragnar had commented on, in the interest form, which is basically an application, I'll put all of the communities and I'll let them self-identify. I mean, I'm going to tell them that we need these, but if they're also saying an Indigenous person and a small business owner, they can tick both of those things off and we could get two for the price of one. So we will put those things on there so they can self-identify. But again, getting into their hands is where I'm really going to need the board's help on how do I get these people who are interested in devices for aesthetics and advanced aesthetics that fit into these different communities. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I'll
this
do
is
my best.
Amber.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So my question is, are there specific esthetician groups in Oregon, like estheticians of color, LGBT, like, are there already groups that already have communication with you or with our board that we can
There
already,
is
like,
one-
that,
There isn't one that that's just for people of color or just for small business owners or just for transgender. There's one community. It's the Oregon for Fair Licensing Association. It is ran by Deborah Maston and Helene, and I'll reach out to them. I can also pull lists if people identify in their application process. I can also pull lists of people from the database who may, at least based on their ethnic background. So I can use that tool as well. But again, getting people to get involved is really, like, and everyone has said, is going to be the difficult part. It's going to probably be a lot of cold calling. Letters probably aren't going to work. I have to call people on the phone and say, will you do this? Do you know someone that will do this?
So the reason I asked that question, I mean, it sounds like there is one. Like, could we reach out to them and ask them like their connections, like, because it seems like, if you ask, will Black people be affected by this? I mean, will they? Like, it's such a general question that, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, if there are people who already have set up professional groups or like the, any kind of groups that already exist, if we could reach out to them and then say, like, are there people in the community that will be affected by this, but like specifically estheticians, or then like, medical professionals who are also connected with like estheticians. Like, if there's already groups that are established, if we could like reach out to them and then ask them, like, who are we missing that we might not be aware of?
Yeah, I could definitely do that. But the onus goes back on the office and the board to determine what those communities look like. I can ask them, and I will definitely reach out to them. Do they, break it down to different categories within the association? I have no idea. So it'll probably have to be a collaborative effort with at least the Oregon Aesthetics for Fair Licensing. We'll have to do some kind of collaborative piece. They're probably going to be the biggest category because they do have advanced estheticians and estheticians. But I mean, in terms of thinking of Black communities, I'm sure that there are estheticians and advanced estheticians who are people of color that are using devices that say we take a device out of aesthetics and put it into advanced aesthetics, that's going to affect them. Right? And that could fall into all of these categories. So.
Yes, which is why I'm thinking, because if we go down the list, we could say yes to everything, right? Like, we could presumably say, like, sure, there's communities in all of these categories, so we would say yes to them. So I think that's what I'm trying to like narrow down, is like, is there already established groups that we can just like go to and say, like, who are often marginalized with things like this? Like, who should we be looking at? I think I'm struggling, maybe because I'm not an esthetician, but I'm just thinking more broadly, not as an esthetician, as a, someone on the board, is that we might be marginalized if we don't say yes to everything down the line.
Well, I mean, I would say just kind of start is, I mean, you're right. Potentially any community could be, manufacturers could be considered a community. Corporations can be considered a community. There's all kinds, but really thinking in terms of devices and aesthetics and advanced aesthetics. I mean, I think Black communities, Indigenous communities, people of color. I don't know about rural communities. I mean, maybe I could reach out to facilities in rural areas off of zip codes in HLO database. Same thing with small businesses. I'm sure the transgender community, at least consumers, may be affected by it. I'm really looking to you guys to know the groups of people that I would be contacting. I mean, of course, I'll use whatever tools I have, but I'm looking to you guys to know who those groups are.
This is Michelle Strobel. I'm going back to what Amber said, which is this is a lot of information for me to give on the spot. It just seems like almost impossible. If I have time to think and go through and identify, I just think it's an injustice that we're supposed to try to come up with this like on the spot. What does everyone else think?
Well, I mean, it was putting your material, so in hopes that you read your materials in advance, but I don't even know when you guys got them, to be honest. What we could do is schedule an additional meeting to just go over this topic, but everybody would have to be willing to, you know, come to the meeting, get a quorum, and have this information readily available. If you do want to take some time to think about it, we could definitely do that, if that's what you're more comfortable with.
Sam, could we reach out to like the Oregon Small Business Association? I feel like there's probably like trade groups, or there's like community and trade groups, whether it's like the Oregon Chamber of Commerce or the Small Business Association. I feel like if we reached out to some of the larger statewide community groups and trade associations, we could maybe just present them to the question, like, out of your membership, do you think that you have anybody who would be interested in representing either both your community in terms of like the trade community, but also individual demographies within that community? And I feel like rather than just sending out letters to everyone in the state, or, you know, who are like all of our stakeholders, that might be a more targeted approach to, I guess I'm leaning, I just don't know how we're going to accomplish this without giving people the opportunity to self-identify. That'll both generate interest. There's like the selection bias. We're going to get people who actually are interested rather than just blanketing everybody. And that might also help us get a better idea of who not only feels that they might be impacted, but is also expressing like a willingness, or at least an interest at minimum, in participation. Like there's like the League of Counties and the Chamber of Commerce. I'm thinking of just like a few trade groups that, like, I feel like if they put that out to their members, there's probably at least one business owner in that group who's like, hey, like, I'm a person of color, I own a med spa, that would definitely impact me. And then if they expressed an interest, then we could kind of look at their profile and determine like, oh, cool, this person would represent like 3 communities. That's a good intersectional applicant for the RAC. And that would maybe help us narrow it down rather than pigeonholing. Like, I feel like that'll be easier than trying to say, well, we need one person from the Black community and one person from the Indigenous. Like, rather than pigeonholing ourselves and just kind of like dictating who we think will be impacted, I feel like it would be more equitable to present that to the public via groups and associations that they've already created and they're already participating in, and allow that to kind of guide our process.
This is Amber. I 100% agree.
This is Michelle. I agree wholeheartedly.
So you don't want to determine the groups. You want me to reach out to some larger groups. And I heard Oregon Small Business Owners, Oregon Chamber of Commerce, Oregon League of Counties. Is there other groups that, and ask them who they would, almost getting it backwards, I feel like, but I can do it that way.
So I'm thinking like
So
HRC would be a good one, because like HRC is intersectional. They'll cover like gay, lesbian, transgender, intersex. Like that'll cover a lot of that's a group that covers a lot of communities. So it's a large intersectional meeting place that already exists. Like NAACP, while they focus on primarily African American issues, they also do anything with just people of color in general. So if they don't feel like I feel like they would be a good resource for racial communities. Like there's these larger groups that are already out there doing good work. So rather than us saying like we want one from this only, like I feel like they would be a better resource in terms of telling us who needs representation, because they're already fighting that fight. Like invite them to the table, you know?
Who was the group, Ragnar?
It's like
I think
HRC
it's a
just
great
came to
idea,
mind
but if I don't
for
know who it is. Say it again.
Human Rights, HRC, like Human Rights Coalition or Human Rights Council. I forget what the C stands for. They're a sexuality-based community. It's a nonprofit. Like NARAL is like a pro-choice group, but they would be a good resource for like women's issues. The Small Business Association would cover both rural communities as well as small businesses in Portland and Metro. And I don't remember if it's called the Oregon League of Counties or not, but there's like a Chamber of Commerce style organization that's more focused on the smaller towns. I'm trying to remember what that.
Yeah, I can find it. I've heard of the League of Oregon Cities.
That's the one. That's it.
Yeah. Are there other places you want me to look at? I mean, I can reach out to the school owners. Maybe they know somebody.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Sammy. And the esthetician group that you were talking about.
Yeah, I'll reach out to them for sure.
This is Michelle, and also for us as a board to email you when we think of something, over the next week, if we can think of other agencies or groups, Facebook pages that might be relevant to something like this. I'm more than happy to help out and reach out. I just feel like what I know isn't going to represent the bigger group of communities that need to be represented.
So I guess if we could agree on kind of the general, these general groups, Black communities, Indigenous communities, people of color, small businesses, transgender, medical communities, and school communities, and then I can, with those groups, use these tools that you guys have given me to contact people.
I would say the Oregon Nurses Association. So like all of the different nurses associations, like nationwide, we're all focused very, very heavily on racial equity and social equity issues right now. So I feel like the ONA might be a really awesome resource. So whoever is in charge of their community outreach could probably rattle off 15 interested people just off the top of their head.
Yeah.
I bet 20 bucks on it.
So Sammy, are you asking us from the list that we've given you to identify which communities we think they cover? So like
what I'm asking is, if I call or send a letter to Oregon small businesses, I need to at least tell them, here are the communities we're looking for. Do you have any people who could represent?
Can we just use the list?
Say that again.
Can we be more broad and say that we're looking to represent all impacted communities? Do you have members within your organization who you feel would be interested or impacted?
I think I'd have to lean to Heather on that one. That seems not what the law was trying to get at. But I don't know.
This is Amber. Can we just use the list that you gave that we have to like submit to them? And say these are the areas that we're trying to focus on, and if there are anything that we are missing, could you also include that?
Yeah, you mean like the Black communities, Indigenous, veterans?
Yeah, like all the ones we've kind of already identified.
I don't know that all of them, like veterans communities, I'm not sure. If you say that veterans are going to be affected, then I've got to reach out to veterans. So that's why it's kind of being specific. So the list I just read off might be a little more in tune with that. So Black communities, Indigenous, people of color, rural, small business, transgender, medical community, and school community. That's some of what's on the list that you have, and then also some that I've added. Would you feel comfortable with those people, with those communities?
Yes, I feel comfortable. Do we?
Yes.
Just as Harold, do we need to add on the gay and lesbian community, or should we do gay, lesbian, trans, and add that on as another group? Is that all? Did they say LGBT? Okay, I have to get my list.
That's what I'm thinking. Like HRC would be a good point contact for just the alphabet soup community in general. I'm a member of it. Like, that they represent all of us, I feel like, pretty equally. So you could probably cover a large intersectional group of people by reaching out to that one group. And I think that would be a better way to target a multiple representative, like a voice that's multiply representative.
Perfect. So are we comfortable with that, with the list I just read off?
This is Michelle, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there any other groups that you can think of that maybe I've missed? I don't think so, but it's my work, so.
I think it's a good list.
Okay. And then if something comes up, just send me an email if you have. I have the, Ragnar, I appreciate the list of associations and stuff that you brought up. That's very helpful. If you think of anybody else, obviously we'll reach out to the main association, Oregon Medical Board, Oregon Medical Association, and get this going. But it was very helpful. And
You have your work cut out for you. Thank you for everything you do.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yes, no problem. This is it's a new journey that we're taking, and we're taking it together. I don't. So you recommended
Sammy, this is Tracy. I'm sorry to cut you off. If we have recommendations of actual people or other organizations, should we just email them to you?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I'll send you guys an email reminder, kind of just summarizing what we've talked about.
Excellent. Thank you, Sammy.
Okay, I think, okay, recommendations. Do we need to vote on this, Heather? I don't really think we do. It's under items for board action.
I was trying to remember whether the other boards have voted. And I don't think that at the stage in the process.
I think you're right. Just
maybe once the RAC is right, now that you have recommendations, perhaps not a vote right now, but we can talk about whether a vote is needed once you have the members in the RAC groups identified.
Again, this is new, so where do we fall in this whole process? And I still have to meet with the Advanced Aesthetics Board. And their meeting was supposed to be Wednesday, but now they don't have a quorum. We don't have enough board members, so now it's being pushed out. So I'm going to have to merge the two. So, but I'm going to obviously give them the report on what this meeting. So I'm hopefully they'll mesh well. Other than that, I think I am done with this part of my report. Is that true, Bob? Oh, you'll notice that on slide 17, there's a whole lot of empty spaces for RAC meetings and stuff because I don't have any scheduled until I get the group. So this will be filled in as we go. And then there's the bill, and that's all I have. Awesome. Any questions for me? No?
I don't think anyone has any more questions. Sammy,
Okay.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you, Sammy.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, so we must be headed towards you, Bob, for reports.
Yes, thank you very much. The first part I wanted to cover is the board and their standings currently. Tracy is good until 2023, and Ken is good until the end of the year. So we need to hear from her if she wants to serve again. She can send Derek an email or myself, and we'll get that information out here about Derek shortly. Amber, in November, you're ending your second term? And Michelle, also at the end of, or beginning of 24, you'll be finishing up your second term.
And if anybody wants to grab that position ahead of time, just let us know.
Thanks, Michelle.
Hot potato, Michelle. Jeez Louise.
Yeah, I don't
You
think,
want that, Ragnar? I know you do.
No, ma'am.
and then Ragnar, in July, you're coming up at the end of your second term.
Oh, no way. Did you know that, Ragnar?
Yeah, I did, and I don't think that I'll be meeting with y'all again. 2 is the limit, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But we may have someone to fill your vacancy. But we're still waiting to hear some affirmative action on that.
This is
Harold?
Michelle. Real quick, can Ragnar move over to the Advanced Aesthetics Board?
I am not sure.
You'd be good there, Ragnar.
I don't think so. Only spot, oh, well, have you become a nurse practitioner yet?
No, I'm doing COVID response for just regular nursing.
Oh, well, if he was a nurse practitioner or someone licensed under that chapter, we could do that, or a public member, but I don't know if he fit public member criteria since he is an esthetician. So, but we can look into it. Me and Derek can talk about it if you're even interested. Ragnar,
I think I'd miss y'all too much if I just left entirely. So if you have a spot that I could help you fill, then I'm happy to do so.
Because I also have respiratory therapy. Are you interested in respiratory therapy?
I'm not an RT. Is it like a public member thing?
And we need medical and public members.
Yeah, if you need a nursing member, I could help with that.
Okay, I'm putting you down. Me and Derek will reach out to you and get something organized. That one might be a really good one. Okay. Thanks, Ragnar. Sorry, Bob.
No, you're fine. You're fine. And Harold's good until 23, and this is his April, and that'll be his first term, it looks like. And then for some practitioner vacancies, we have some folks that are waiting to be appointed. And then moving off the director's report, there's been some movement around the office with management in another position. So Sylvie is no longer the director here at the office. She's moved on to bigger and better things in Arizona.
Oh.
And it's not that bad. I'm the director now. So it can't be all that bad, right? Oh, interim director. Sorry.
I don't know, Bob. We'll have to wait until you're off the call.
Okay. I'll run back to my office for y'all to call me. Yes, so I'm the interim director till further notice, and Trampus Shuck, and I think most of you have probably talked with him at one time or another in the board meetings. He's going to be the interim regulatory operations manager. And Derek Foltz, since we've mentioned his name a few times, and you may or may not have received emails from him, but he is our exec support. And so he's filling in for Paige, who has moved on to bigger and better things. And as far as COVID-19 status goes, the office is open for business. We have folks coming in, testing over-the-counter business, just like it was prior to COVID. Any questions about any of that?
No.
Okay. And as far as the board report, the director's board reports goes, the licensing and fiscal, if you all have had a chance to review it, and unless there's some discussion about any of it. I can go into the financials.
Well, we're broke. We can say that.
Okay, it looks like the chair has brought us to the financials. Yes, but keep in mind
Sure are.
that I believe it was January 1, the new fees took effect. So they are at a place now where hopefully that this balance changes.
This is Michelle. How do you get paid when we're so negative?
Well, not everybody's broke. And that's what the HLO is built on, is everybody helps everybody else.
So the bigger question, this is Michelle, is why don't we live within a budget like all the rest of us?
No, we paid for all of those awards for many years. I feel like turnabout's fair play, right?
Good answer, Ragnar. I'm going to use that.
Don't save him so quickly, Ragnar.
We don't want to lose Bob too.
Don't try and sink him so fast, Michelle. Anyway,
Oh.
so if there's no more questions or comments about the director's reports, I can move into the regulatory report. And moving forward, Trampus will be taking on this, but we still have a couple cases open from previous bienniums. 2019, we have one. We're hoping to have that today, but there were some things that happened that slowed us down. In the 2021 and 2023 biennium, 21 we had 48 open cases. 118 open cases. 23 we have 63 open cases and a grand total of 186 for the last 3 bienniums that are still open and pending.
Okay, sounds
Any
good.
questions or concerns about that? Okay. Sammy, policy report, please.
Yes, policy reports.
Thank you.
Basically, this is a letter that is in draft form that I have to make changes on. I just gave you the draft. But it will be going out at the end of the week to all estheticians. It's basically giving you an overview of House Bill 2993, which we just talked about with communities, kind of what's halted the process of the rulemaking. So it goes over that, and then it goes over that we haven't had board membership, a complete board for advanced aesthetics, which we're working on now, and then we're going to have some historical stuff from old letters that we've sent. But this is a draft. You'll get the final one in your email box at the end of the week.
Awesome, thank you.
Any questions about that?
No.
No, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so are we on public interest parties feedback? My time to talk?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so at this time, the Board of Cosmetology will hear public interested parties feedback. Members of the audience, please wait until you have been recognized by the chair. Once recognized, please state your name and affiliation to the board for the record.
Hi, this is Bob. All the people on the phone, the public phone line, is there anybody who wanted to make comment? Anybody? Anybody on the public phone line wish to make public comment, please?
Okay. So are we moving, okay, executive session now, next?
Yes.
Okay, Bob, I have 2 executive session spiels, and I don't think I have the right one. Is the one that I'm supposed to say the 192.660, is that the right one?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. We can enter into the executive session now then. The Board of Cosmetology will now meet in executive session pursuant of ORS 192.6602F, ORS 192.335, 9A, and ORS 40.225.
Michelle, I need to interrupt you.
Yes.
That's the previous one.
Say again.
I believe that was the previous one.
I know, I don't have, okay, so you guys sent me 2. I printed,
Okay.
I didn't realize. So you do the next one. Sorry about that, Bob.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Happy to. The Board of Cosmetology will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602F and ORS 676.590 for the purpose of considering information exempt from public disclosure at 11:35 a.m. on May 16th, 2022. Representatives of the news media shall be allowed to attend executive session by conference call and will be provided further calling instructions shortly. The public phone line will be muted for the duration of the executive session. Are there any representatives of the news media on the public phone line? No. Recognizing there is no news media in attendance, the public phone line will be muted for the duration of the executive session. We will return to open session before taking any final actions or making any final decisions.
Thank you, Bob.
No problem.